Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for June 1st, 2025. In this update, I am going to give you the very latest information on the tropics for the Gulf and the Northwestern Caribbean, as latest GFS model continues to indicate that there could be a tropical depression or tropical storm that forms up in the Northwestern Caribbean for the middle of June, and it could be tracking towards the deep south portion of the United States and the Gulf. So with that being said, here's a look at the latest GOES 19 true color visible satellite imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. There will be a link in the description below this video, and I'll tell you what, it is June 1st, and what does that mean? Well, this is the first day of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, and that means we have to keep an extra close eye on the tropics, especially in the Gulf and the Northwestern Caribbean as we head closer and closer to the middle of June for the potential for something to develop. But in the meantime, things are quiet out there right now. As you can see here, there is not much in the way of deep convection out here in the Caribbean or most of the main development region, and that is because we have Saharan dust that is moving across the Leeward and Windward Islands as we speak, with enhancement of trade winds that are blowing pretty strong through there, as we got this big sprawling ridge of high pressure over the central North Atlantic, helping to get those trade winds going. And it looks like we're getting ready to see another mini plume of Saharan dust that will soon emerge off the coast of Africa in the next 1 to 3 days. Now, when we take a look at the latest 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, as you can see here, there is no tropical cyclone activity in the next 7 days, which is good news for anyone that is traveling to the deep tropics for a honeymoon, for a wedding, or simply just to get away for the next week or so. Conditions are looking really good here, but rest assured you all, by the time we go into about the 11th and the 12th of June, I am still keeping an eye on the Northwestern Caribbean for something to develop, and it could move into the Gulf. That's what we were talking about in last night's live stream, how there are still signals being picked up from the GFS operational model. I'll be looking at that here in just a second, but also we're keeping an eye on the Eastern Pacific for something to also develop here again. There's a medium chance, another threat for tropical development here over the next 7 days, where there is a 40% chance of development. And let's briefly read this all to you. This is as of 11 in the morning, Pacific Daylight Time, south of Central America and southern Mexico. An area of low pressure is forecast to form off the coast of Central America and southern Mexico during the middle to the late portions of this week. Once it forms, this disturbance is expected to move gradually westward to the west-northwest at around 10 miles an hour. Environmental conditions are expected to be at least marginally conducive for tropical development of this system, and a tropical depression could form by the end of this week. So I wanted to keep you all updated on that, not to forget the Eastern Pacific, because there is that medium chance. So with that being said, here's a look at the latest GFS model. This is the Global Forecasting System, or the American model, and we're looking at a 3-plot system, folks. The color shading, the yellow, the orange, and the red colors are vorticity, how much spin there is in the atmosphere. So the more red you see when it's especially tightly bundled, there is more spin at 5,000 feet above the surface, where we could diagnose and be like, oh, there might be a tropical depression or tropical storm that's forming up in that area, or an extratropical cyclone or a subtropical storm, in other words. And then you get these wind barbs right here. See these little flags? That is basically which way the wind is blowing from and how strong the wind is. So we have easterly wind here, and then it's coming in out of the east-southeast through to the Caribbean, and then curving sharply around out of the westerly direction over Florida and over the Gulf. And that means we have a bit of a ridge of high pressure that is extending like so, like this. And that's how we look at the atmosphere at 5,000 feet. And then these height contours really reemphasize that this is where our ridge actually is in place. So that is why you get these trade winds that are this strong across the Caribbean, because of that ridge of high pressure to the north. But also what we can look for here is, are there any chances of tropical development once we go into the middle of June? And the answer to that is yes, there is still a chance that something forms in the northwestern Caribbean, and that's because our GFS model is not giving up. So looking at day 5 here for Friday morning, June the 6th, 2025, there is our East Pacific storm that the National Hurricane Center is watching really closely. Some other models are picking that up, and that's why there's a 40% chance of that forming up in the next 7 days, while the Caribbean and the Gulf remain rather quiet. Going forward here into day 7, there it is. There is our area of vorticity. Been at 5,000 feet. That, my folks, is what a weather forecaster or even a meteorologist will look for, is that spin in the atmosphere. And where's that going to go? You might ask. Well, let's play this through. I already know where it's going to go. It's going to go into the Gulf, right? So you can see that's 7 days out. This is day 8. This is day 9. So for Tuesday, June the 10th, 2025, so nearing the middle of June, you can see there is that vorticity signature there, that entity that we're watching approaching the Yucatan Peninsula. Again, this is for Tuesday morning, about day 9. If we look at prior runs, it's been showing up already for several runs, okay? So there is definitely a signal here, and that is why we're not ignoring this. As we go beyond that, though, for day 10, this is for Wednesday morning, it moves into the Gulf, and then it looks like it is going to strengthen at a pretty quick rate, not at a rapid rate, but a quick enough rate to where this particular model continues to indicate that it could become a hurricane in the northern Gulf under light sheared conditions, not much in the way of drier air entrainment. And that's going to be the whole player here on why this is showing up strongly on the GFS model. Here's your classic ridge here over Bermuda. There is your classic flow moving around that subtropical ridge. So therefore, anyone still, the ballpark, remember the baseball field that we were kind of using as an analogy? This is the area that still needs to be watching really closely, especially from about, say, the state line of Texas into Louisiana and points eastward into the Big Bend of Florida. Really needs to be watching this, okay? Even so, it's still far out in time. This is 288 hours out. There's still, again, that signal. There is still a footprint of something that forms, okay? And of course, Jamaica, if you guys were wondering about Jamaica, it doesn't look like you're going to get impacted by this at all for the time being. But the Yucatan, Playa del Carmen in the Yucatan Peninsula, as well as Nicaragua and Honduras, Cozumel as well needs to be watching this system really closely, as well as Western Cuba, getting kind of uncomfortably close there over the Yucatan Channel. Okay, so that's over the next 10 days that we need to watch this, and even beyond that. As you can see here, and boy, if that drifts, that can be a big rain producer storm. The Canadian model is not showing anything at all. We'll just fast forward this. There's your system in the Eastern Pacific. Again, consistency amongst the Euro, the Canadian, and the GFS. I'll show you that. And then going forward, still nothing popping up here on the Canadian model, which means it's only the GFS that still has a handle on this. Is the GFS right? We could say the same thing too with the Euro. Is the European model right at not showing anything thus far? This is a tough one for a weather forecaster to answer, because as long as there's something on the GFS model that has been so consistent for a while here, there is still that opportunity for tropical development around the 10th and beyond. Okay, looking at the European fast version, so this is only increments of 24 hours, same plot system. You can see there's that system in the Eastern Pacific. That is why the NHC has that 40%. So there is consistency on that amongst our three main models. And looking beyond out to 10 days, you don't see anything out here. Instead, you have a big old fat ridge of high pressure in the North Atlantic or in the subtropics, with really strong trade winds moving through the Caribbean and into the Gulf. So this is this is a model that is not showing anything either, the Canadian model as well. Now, you're probably wondering, why does the GFS model show tropical development even so our other models are not showing it? And the answer to that is it really has to lie in with the lighter shear and a lot of moisture that piles up down here under a fairly favorable MJO or Madden-Julian oscillation environment. So all these teal colors here indicate lots of rich, deep layer moisture. The brown colors over the northwestern Gulf indicate and signify that the air in the deep layer is rather dry and unfavorable. And usually you get a lot of deep layer vertical wind shear along with that. So that's not a very optimal environment for something to thrive in. But where this system actually is here, in about 10 days, there's a lot of moisture that surrounds the system. Now, although there's a little bit of a moat, that is a area of devoided moisture and usually not much convection or rainfall. So the skies here are usually brighter, maybe some sunny skies within that. And that's going to be what's going to impact on how this all develops. But right here, it looks like very symmetrical with our moisture field, even as it approaches Louisiana. And that's why our system here is able to strengthen at a gradual rate, not at a rapid one, but still brings it down to 965 millibars. And that is why. Now, when we look at our upper level winds really quickly, you can see why too. Wind shear is not a big issue with this. You can see very light, loose upper level winds at 38,000 feet. And as we go forward, still some really light vertical wind shear here. And if we actually play this through, you can see our shear vectors are pretty much in a gradual circle and anticyclonic motion, which means our shear is generally under 15 knots in the Gulf. And that's why the GFS is going a little bit crazy when it comes to development. Now, another thing I wanted to show you all is the Saharan dust. So let's take a look at that here on this forecast. And what we have here is just how much of it we are seeing. And right now, there's a lot of Saharan dust moving across the Caribbean and the southwestern Atlantic. A little bit of a plume is trying to come off of Africa. So you get this snaky look to the Saharan dust. And in between all that, we usually get a tropical wave. And so you can see the first initial push of Saharan dust moving across the Caribbean and then eventually into the Gulf. This might dim the sun enough to where it cools sea surface temperatures only briefly before the Saharan dust really backs away here. And with very light winds over the Gulf over the next couple of weeks, the Gulf is only going to get warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer. And that by itself does not make for hurricanes, but when a tropical system moves over that region, we can get some very intense systems, and more on that with our sea surface temperatures. So actually, let's take a look at with what we have right there at this given time. Okay, and so this was updated from yesterday, and wow, this is actually yesterday's image, but when I showed you this image yesterday, it was from the 30th. So this is the very latest information, and you can see the Bay of Youth now creeping to 32 degrees Celsius. That's about 88 to 89 degrees Fahrenheit. That is really, 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 really warm. That is near record warm. Of course, along the coast of Florida, sea surface temperatures are hanging steady there in the mid to upper 80s. And then, of course, look at how warm these sea surface temperatures here are in the loop current. Right now, around 29.7 to 30.1 degrees Celsius. So very, very warm, at least around 85 to 87 degrees Fahrenheit. And then down here in the Bay of Campeche in the Gulf, Southern Gulf, water temperatures are also warming up at a very quick rate. And pretty much everywhere except this little area here off the Yucatan is very conducive for intense hurricanes if there's enough moisture and if the wind shear is light enough. We can get big problems, and let's hope that does not happen, okay? Let's take a look here at our temperature or sea surface temperature anomaly. Very high in the Gulf right now off the coast of Florida. We looked at this yesterday. Man, oh man, this is a big problem right here. 2 to 3 degrees Celsius above average almost 3 degrees Celsius above average over the Bay of Youth in western Cuba, the island of Youth as well. And then the eastern half of the Gulf here, where our winds have really remained very light, this portion of the Gulf has really seen a lot of warming over the last 2 to 3 weeks. And even the western Gulf now is beginning to show signs of more quicker warming. So in other words, this is untapped and it's ready to go. We're essentially waiting for the atmosphere to cooperate. And once it does, and we get something that moves into the Gulf, let's hope it doesn't, because if it does, rest assured, we could see intense tropical development at a rapid to explosive rate, similar to with what we had with Milton. Okay, Milton was a great testimony of how intense systems can intensify. Now, another look at that favorability is the Madden-Julian oscillation or velocity potential anomaly. All right, and this is a Hofmöller diagram. I showed you all this in yesterday's live stream, and I'm showing it to you all again. I cannot stop looking at this and tell you all right now, beyond about the 7th and the 8th, right about in here, I'm going to polygon this in black. Okay, this whole area is open for business. Once that moves over to the Caribbean and then it gets into the Atlantic, I believe the GFS or the European model is going to catch on pretty quickly. And even our Canadian model. We'll see if the icon also does. But only GFS is showing this right now, and that's the consistency concern that we're looking at. And then unfavorable conditions in the Central and Western Pacific. And that is because we have a lot of sinking motion. The air is sinking, it's drying out, and it's a little warmer above the boundary layer. So therefore, you have stability issues to work with when it comes to the tropics down here along the equator. And then the Atlantic opens up for business. Okay. Now, really quickly, I wanted to show you all the graphical sea surface temperature historical records thing from cyclonicwx.com. This is a really good tool to use to analyze sea surface temperatures in the past. And what we have here is very warm sea surface temperatures. Take a look at this. This is still a degree Celsius above average. Even so, yes, we have cooled it down by 0.2 degrees, as far as a temperature anomaly perspective goes. I mean, come on, this is normal down here. Let's kind of bold that in black for you all that are watching this, okay? Let's bold this in black. This is incredible. This is normal. Everything here, and I'm going to put red, everything all in here is all above average. Everything down here below the line is all below average. So I hope I did really good at visualizing that for you all. Okay, we are well above average. Okay, when you look at the entire Gulf, we're running as much as a degree to a degree and a half above average. And that's pretty concerning, okay? It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's extra energy, it's extra heat being put down below the surface. So if we get something that develops in the Gulf, we really have to watch. We all saw how quick Milton intensified, right? I cannot forget about that. Tropical storm one day, a Cat 5 hurricane at an extreme value the next. Literally in 24 to 36 hours, the thing went that intense, that ballistic. That is why we watch these things. The warmer the sea surface temperatures get in the Gulf, it doesn't form hurricanes. It's not a hurricane development machine, but when something moves over like a disturbance, we really got to watch because, yeah, under light sheared environment, as well as a lot of moisture, things could creep up very quickly. Alrighty, folks. I hope you enjoyed the tropical weather outlook and discussion. If you found this video very helpful, detailed, and informative, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel because guess what? If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get all of my latest tropical weather outlook and discussions for the Atlantic and even for the Eastern Pacific. So again, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And also, when something big happens near your location, especially along the Gulf Coast of the United States, we're going live. We're streaming live for 24 plus hours with live tropical weather discussions. And lastly, We're going to even incorporate that into the Windward and Leeward Islands, such as Jamaica, not Jamaica, well, Jamaica as well as even Puerto Rico, where we have radar sites there. So we will be able to live stream doing that as well when a tropical system impacts that area. So again, if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, this is the time to do so, because this is Sunday, June the 1st, 2025, and the first day of the Atlantic hurricane season, the official start. So, but anyways, if you did enjoy the video, share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Peace out.